nice, cozy crowd, and I suppose a lot of us must have been scared of the topic, and that's probably why there's a different response today. The idea behind choosing this particular topic was mainly to explore application of spirituality into management. That was the point of this talk. Unlike most of my other talks that some of you have heard, which are very practically oriented, this of course does get very practical as we go into the topic, but let's start with where Indian philosophy starts. How many of us here know about Sankhya philosophy? Little bit, okay. Bala, I'm sure, knows it. Okay, and would you like to share what is it that you, what's your idea of it? Sir? That's Patanjali Yoga, which is a parallel school of thought. Yes. 24 principles, yes. That's a yogic school. That's a yogic school, which is a parallel school of thought. It's related, yes. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. Right, yeah. Sankhya philosophy is one of the 6 Indian schools of thought as far as the question of existence is concerned. Like the word philosophy by itself reveals, phil. It's a combination of the Latin roots of phil and sophia. Phil is love or liking, and sophia is wisdom, love of wisdom. So Sankhya happens to be one of the 6 schools of thought. The others include yoga, the yoga school of thought, Vedanta, and so on, Nyaya, Purva Mimamsa. So you have 6 schools of thought. Sankhya is one of them. And of course, we're talking of the original schools of thought. If you look at the way things are now, there is quite a bit of intermingling between all of those. So Sankhya philosophy as on today is not the way it started off originally. Sankhya started off as what is called as a Gnostic school of thought. Gnostic in the sense that it did not believe in God being separate, and therefore there was no need for acknowledging existence of God. It's not so much about saying God does not exist, but there was no need for existence, and therefore Gnostic philosophy. So when we talk of the Sankhya base of the Sankhya philosophy, the base is the concept of dualism. So it talks of dualistic existence. For example, in a very practical sense, positive being balanced by negative, the North Pole being balanced by South Pole. That's how we see the manifestation of Sankhya school of thought. Sankhya believes in 2 primary concepts, that of the Purusha and the Prakriti. Purusha is what you may call the pure consciousness, and Prakriti being Purusha exploring itself. So we may call it masculine and feminine, not so much in terms of male and female, but balancing of energies, yin and yang, masculine and feminine, positive and negative, or simply conception and execution. So that's the concept of Purusha and Prakriti. So Purusha is everything which is pure consciousness, and in order for consciousness to know itself, it manifests as Prakriti. Prakriti is everything that we see around. Consciousness doesn't know itself unless it sees a mirror. So Prakriti becomes a mirror of the consciousness. So pure consciousness in one sense has no need to exist because it just is. For it to know itself, it needs to project outward, and that projection happens to be Prakriti. Of course, if you look at the modern day understanding of Prakriti, we look at Prakriti as nature, or a very limited definition, but Prakriti is all that is, all the manifestations of Purusha or consciousness. So Prakriti in the purest sense is what may be called as one of the tattvas, which is pradhan or pure potentiality, and it follows into 24 other tattvas. Now, but before we come to the tattvas, the concept that I'd like to explore on today is the trigunas. Trigunas are the three qualities or states of being or templates, as we may call, in which Prakriti, let's say, expresses itself. And the three concepts being sattva, rajas, and tamas. Right? So these are three templates. Templates in the sense three, let's say, in a very practical sense, options or ways of being, in which all of us express ourselves at various points in time. If we look at any average human being, we are a mix of all the three, and sometimes a particular template, a particular quality takes on is predominant, while the balance keeps shifting. So that's the core concept here. So what does, for some of us who are familiar with the concept of sattva, what does it mean to us? Mm-hmm. Yes, okay. Those would be the human expressions of sattva, right? How about rajas? Yes. Activities, busy, aggression, excitation, energy. And tamas? Dull. Okay. Dull. Okay, inertia, laziness, sloth. Yes, that's how it tends to express itself. Now, if you look at that's the human way of expressing these qualities. Now, if you have to look at the application part of it, and let's get on to that aspect here. Sattva, we're talking of three templates or three states of being in which Prakriti or potentiality manifests itself, loosely put. So we're talking of Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, three of them working as a combination in the physical world. If we have to look at exploring this from the human quality point of view, like the gentleman here said, Sattva is an expression of all that is noble, all that is at peace. It's the energy of fineness, of joy, of illumination. Right? So, and therefore, if you are talking of a human manifestation of pure sattva, a person who's completely conquered these two qualities and therefore only expresses sattva, that would be what we might call the Buddha or the Christ or the enlightened one. So this is a completely noble, fine, joyous, illuminated state. How about rajas? How would this manifest? A person who is, let's say, purely rajasic and has overshadowed the sattvic and tamasic elements in self, how would this manifest outward? Yes, filled with desires, activities, what may be in a practical sense called enthusiasm even. Right? So we're talking of, let's say, the archetype of the commercial businessman, completely target-driven. That's one of the archetypes that we can talk of. Yeah. How about the tamasic individual? Okay. Tamas, yes, it's the energy of inertia, of let's say even bordering on what we may judgmentally call the negatives. So if you have to look at the extreme archetype of the tamasic energy, it would possibly be the criminal, the hardcore criminal. So we're talking of extreme archetypes expressed in the human realm. Of course, at a very practical level, none of us is purely sattvic or purely rajasic or purely tamasic. We have a mixture of all of these templates, all of these qualities. So we have one template here which is a mixture of sattva and rajas, which if you have to look at using a management term, this area would be called assertive. Someone who is noble and at the same time very practically target oriented, somebody who has a lot of things to do and achieve in the physical world. So you're talking of the archetype of a good leader, a noble leader. How about this one? The combination of rajas and tamas. You're talking of a combination of aggression and sloth. Aggression and perhaps even deviousness. What kind of a person do you think would manifest here? Again, we're not talking of individuals, but archetypes. Absolutely. The archetypical political leader, that's the kind of quality that we're talking of. Here we're talking of aggression. Okay. Sattva and tamas. And then you have sattva. So you're talking of a combination of noble and passive, or what could that lead to? Split personality, okay. Any other? Wouldn't so much be a saint, because for you to be completely saintly, you would need to have more of a balance of sattva. Here you're talking of a combination of sattva and tamas. Here you're talking of, let's say, what may be very briefly put as the qualities of a learner. A person who would like to be here, but at the moment is confused, is not willing to put enough effort. So it's let's say a typical learner kind of a position where he is neither assertive nor aggressive. There is an element of passivity coming into play. So you're talking of a person who is, let's say, a confused teenager, for example, who has all the good intentions and yet would rather be a couch potato. You're talking of that intermediate balance. There's a lot of mental good intention, but then physically there's no matchup, possibly because of lack of knowledge, or perhaps there is knowledge but lack of wisdom. So you're talking of a state which is not productive, and at the same time it has a potential to be productive. So you're talking of an in-between